Hello and welcome to the Speed Bell. I hope you are safe and doing well wherever you are, and keeping the spirits up in this time. It's a strange time, I know. But luckily there's a whole lot of stuff to just distract you. I don't know what I would do if the internet wasn't a thing during this quarantine, and I've been self-isolating as well, thanks to the virus. Thank you. So. But luckily we have stuff to distract us. This speed build is based on a very strange... It does have a very strange backstory. I think I nicknamed it the Hemingway. I don't know if it's going to be like the title of this video. I haven't written that yet. But I woke up with this idea for a tiny house decorated in sort of a bit more like masculine style than what I normally use. Like normally tiny houses tend to be like either very modern and clean and minimalistic, or a bit more quirky, bohemian, tons of plants. I do that at least. So I wanted to decorate this tiny house in a bit more, dare I say, masculine style, I suppose. The whole backstory for the tiny house is I made a sim called Ernest Hemingway. He deeply wants to be Ernest Hemingway, the great American author. That's his big idol. That's who he wants to be in life. And he, Ernest, my sim, he thinks if he can imitate Ernest Hemingway, live like him, then he can be the next great American writer. So if he can, so he's bought this sort of modern tiny house, and then he's decorated it as he thinks Ernest Hemingway would decorate it. Obviously, Ernest isn't going to succeed until he realizes that he shouldn't imitate other people. He should just be himself. Also, I gave him like the squeamish trait, for instance. So. So even though you can like fish on this lot, I make this stream or lake, which you can both bath in and fish in. The sim I made for it, he doesn't like fishing. He thinks fish are icky. So yeah, he just has to find himself. He's probably going to be a great author in time. He just have to figure out there's no reason to imitate others. Anyway. I don't know why I decided on Hemingway. It's just sort of popped into my head, I suppose. Because honestly, I haven't read a whole lot by Hemingway. I think I read some of the short stories. The ones that stands out to me the most is probably the one called Hills Like White Elephants, which, if you haven't read anything by Hemingway or it's been a while, I would recommend that short story. It is a very short story. I think it's 3.5 pages, so it's a quick read. It does have adult subject matter, just as a disclaimer. But I think it does, show a lot about Hemingway's writing style and the subject matter he dealt with. Because he left it very much between the lines and up to the reader to interpret what's really being said. And I think that story is a great example of that. By the way, complete tangent, and just because I think it's a fun fact. So the expression between the lines apparently comes from ancient Rome, where the spies would write a normal letter, and then they would, between the lines, write their secret spy communications with I think vinegar or possibly their own pee. Because then when you heat it over a candle, then the hidden message appears. So that's the reason why, it's called Between the Lines. I thought that was quite fun. But I suppose that's the thing. I think even subtext also has this old meaning. So I can't remember. It's something about this thread when you weave a piece of cloth. Then the subtext is something about the thread holding it all together, or beneath the cloth. I don't know. I quite etymology. So I don't know. Anyway, back to Hemingway. As I said, I haven't read a whole lot about him. I do know he was he lived in Spain for a while, or during the Spanish Civil War in the late 30s. He went there as a reporter, a journalist. And I found it a bit interesting because while I haven't read a whole lot by Hemingway, I have read a lot by George Orwell, or Eric Blair, and that was his actual name. George Orwell is a pen name. But he also was a journalist in Spain during the Spanish Civil War in the late 30s. So I found that quite interesting. If you ever read the book Homage to Catalonia by Orwell, you find this personal story of this of the war, of the utter misery of fighting in the war, and I think that's in a way quite an important piece of literature. I think there should be more literature about the utter misery of wars. But it also described the whole, how you're swept away with the revolution, and swept away with the, I suppose, the mood of the crowd. It does say something. But I find it interesting in the sense that Homage to Catalonia by Orwell is like his personal story. It tells his personal story. It describes, how he went to the front line, and he lived in these awful, cold, muddy trenches where the rats would scurry across his chest when he was trying to sleep, and there was always a lack of cigarettes and coffee, and they had like one good rifle in the unit. So, but meanwhile, Hemingway, he kept more at a distance, even though Orwell and Hemingway were sort of in agreement in regards to, let's say, the political spectrum. They were on the same side in the Spanish Civil War, although I think Orwell might have been tended more towards, let's say, socialism than Hemingway did. But Hemingway kept a bit more distance. He wasn't involved in the fighting, I believe, and I think, and he wrote the novel For Whom the Bells Toll, which is not his personal story, and is told by he has this other American character, and I think there's probably something there that it's Orwell's personal story, and it's Hemingway writing a novel based on his experience. Not that Hemingway wasn't, let's say, on the front line. I think he was an ambulance driver in Italy during First World War, and he was wounded in action. So yeah, I don't know. That was a very long story about that. I don't know. As I said, I haven't read a whole lot about Hemingway, so I probably shouldn't talk so much about it. But I do think it's worth checking out, at least that short story, if you haven't. That might be something you do today. Because I think it's good with this quarantine to learn something new every day, or discover a new author, or try to read a book you always wanted to read, but you didn't have the time. Obviously, only if you have time. There are some people who are very busy in this time. They should just, be praised and and get through it. But for the rest of us, stuck at home, that might be a thing. Yeah, I don't know. So this build is also a base game, but using a lot of debug items, which is, I think, that's an exaggeration, but I almost feel like I know where every single base game debug item is at this point. I've been scrolling through it so much because I've had an awful lot of time to build. So yeah. I think it does pay off in the landscaping. I think the landscaping of this build turned out quite nice. I quite like it. Anyway, I don't really have a lot more to say. I hope you enjoyed this speed build. Consider subscribing and hanging around. There's no pressure, but otherwise just have a nice day and please stay safe and keep up your spirits. Goodbye.